never changes. Following their victory in the Second World War, an era of Cold War began between the former Allied governments of the Communist Soviet Union and capitalist United States of America, with the Communist People's Republic of China founded in 1949 to eventually become a third competing faction in this global struggle for power. Though oil and more traditional energy sources were in high demand throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, many also invested in nuclear power, making great technological strides in compact nuclear fusion generators and miniaturized nuclear fission, as well as massive supercomputers, advanced robotics, artificial intelligence, cybernetics, power armor, laser weapons, and genetic engineering. Relying primarily on vacuum tube technology, transistors were invented but never earned widespread use, limiting the advent of microelectronics. As populations grew and resources dwindled, the world's larger factions engaged in resource wars, leading to a growing fear of nuclear apocalypse. Recognizing the severity of this threat, the American government outsourced the survival of their nation to Vault-Tec Industries, who were meant to build underground fallout shelters to save a segment of the population in case of nuclear war. The world's energy crisis then worsened in 2066, when China invaded Alaska in a desperate bid to secure some of the world's last oil fields, starting the Sino-American War as the first ever direct confrontation between nuclear-armed superpowers. Providing their soldiers power armor, suits of metal offering enormous protection and the strength to carry heavy weaponry. This enormous technological advantage allowed the United States to invade mainland China and secure Alaska, so that by 2077, the government in Beijing was on the brink of collapse. Finding great success in their use of anti-communist, pro-capitalist, nostalgic, and nationalistic propaganda, the people of the United States developed a deep consumer culture within a growing nuclear economy, romanticizing a wholesome image of the traditional family living the American dream, allowing the 1950s Americana aesthetic to remain prevalent in the culture, producing similar fashion, food, and entertainment for decades to come. A veteran of the Sino-American War, who fought with power armor on the front lines of Alaska, Cooper Howard contributed to this culture by earning fame as an actor, starring in westerns like The Man from Dead Horse and A Man and His Dog. Marrying Barbara Howard, who later became a Vault-Tec executive, Cooper had trouble adapting to the increasingly hardline pro-capitalist, anti-communist propaganda pushed into his projects, but ultimately gave in, even agreeing to do Vault-Tec ads for his wife, creating the famous thumbs up logo that became synonymous with the company. Yet by 2077, Cooper Howard's life and career were in a steep decline, no longer doing his thumbs up pose and working kids' birthday parties alongside his daughter Janie, possibly to keep up with expenses like alimony to his ex-wife. It was at one of these parties on October 23, 2077, that Cooper Howard witnessed the first nuke drop on Los Angeles before chaos erupted, taking off with his daughter on horseback while more bombs dropped in the distance. As the nations of the world launched their nuclear weapons, the Great War began and ended in a matter of hours, resulting in the destruction of human civilization and the death of billions. Securing as many pre-approved residents as possible, Vault overseers and staff locked down their shelters and began implementing the specific plan prepared for their location. On the west coast of the former United States, the three interconnected vaults 31, 32, and 33 did the same, successfully settling their people and cutting themselves off from the rest of the world, with a mission to stay underground for roughly 250 years before returning to the surface on Reclamation Day to restart civilization. For over 2 centuries, the interconnected vaults seemed to thrive, passing on their knowledge and the importance of their mission to each successive generation. But everything changed in 2296, when Lucy MacLean of Vault 33 sought a spouse by applying to the triennial exchange between their shelters. An intelligent, good-natured woman trained in self-defense and riflery, Lucy was the daughter of Hank MacLean, who originally came from Vault 31, but was now the elected overseer of Vault 33. Losing her mother as a child, Lucy grew close to her father and younger brother Norm, who in some ways was her opposite, lacking enthusiasm and ambition. Approved for marriage, her father arranged a trade of seed and machine parts for a male breeder from Vault 32. With the help of her best friend Steph Harper, Lucy prepared for her wedding, where she married Monty, a handsome man eager to leave the reception and consummate the relationship. Yet as the festivities went on, Norm grew suspicious of the strange-acting residents from Vault 32, perhaps noticing their tattoos and scars, and so left the party to visit the other vault, where he found a resident's corpse decomposing without a leg. Returning, he found the guests revealed as vicious raiders, slaughtering and wreaking havoc across Vault 33. Lucy was stabbed and nearly killed by her new husband, but was able to get away by ripping open his face with a broken glass blender. Healed by a stim pack, Lucy armed herself, defended her home, and saved her brother, only to be attacked again by a hideously disfigured Monty, this time saved by her father, Hank MacLean. Alerted to a problem, Hank made his way to the Vault 32 entrance, where he was abducted by the false overseer, Lee Moldaver, who mentioned having known Lucy's deceased mother before departing with her unconscious captive and blowing up the tunnel entrance. Approaching the Leadership Council, Lucy requested a search party for her father, but was denied in the interest of Vault security. Determined to find him and learn about Moldaver, her brother and their cousin Chet helped Lucy escape the Vault and embark upon her quest. Sleeping by a campfire that night, she was saved from giant radroaches by a scientist and his dog-meat companion, meeting them again when she visited the town of Philly. Surviving the bombing of Shady Sands in 2182, young Maximus was rescued by the Brotherhood of Steel and eventually trained as an initiate with the rank aspirant, but found himself ignored and beaten by all his peers, save Dane, a fellow aspirant and friend. Desperately seeking a home and family, Maximus proved physically gifted, but struggled inside the classroom, growing furious when his friend was promoted and he was not. Upon learning Dane was sabotaged and wounded with a blade in his boot, Maximus was suspected and interrogated. Though he tried to deny it, his nerves left him struggling to defend himself, only saved when he made an impassioned plea, offering to sacrifice his life for the Brotherhood. His words so impressed Elder Cleric Quintus, he was chosen to replace Dane as squire for Knight Titus. Taking the oath of fraternity, Maximus pledged himself to the Brotherhood and accepted a T branded on his neck, marking him as a squire for Titus. Assigned a mission from the highest clerics of the Brotherhood in the Commonwealth, Titus and Maximus were to search the wilds for a valuable relic stolen from the Enclave by an escaped scientist and his dog-meat companion. Dropped off by Vertibird a few miles from their target area, Titus was attacked by a Yaoguai mutated bear and suffered severe injuries before Maximus dispelled his shock and shot the beast in the head. Furious with his squire for his slow reaction time, Titus began to yell and make threats, even describing how the Brotherhood would kill Maximus for his mistakes. Holding an idealized perception of knighthood, Maximus deemed Titus unworthy and let him die. Though he was betraying the Brotherhood, Maximus believed he could still secure his place in the organization by using his new power armor to complete the mission and capture the relic. Over 2 centuries after watching the bombs drop on Los Angeles, Cooper Howard survived as a ghoul, mutated by high levels of radiation to resemble a rotting corpse, enduring a process that made him more physically resilient, resistant to radiation, and stopped the aging process, allowing him to live indefinitely. Although many ghouls retained their intelligence and personalities, they also ran the risk of turning feral, a condition that could slowly transform them into unthinking zombies that attack humans on sight. At some point, the ghoul Cooper Howard was afflicted by the condition and started turning feral, but successfully earned money and fame as a bounty hunter, allowing him to keep an ample stock of a special drug which halted the transformation. Maintaining his sanity for decades, his line of work and increasingly ruthless personality made him many enemies, including Don Pedro, who captured and tortured the ghoul, burying him alive with an IV drip, pumping in that special drug to keep him from turning feral. In this way, Don Pedro could dig him up once a year for more torture before returning him to ground. Yet the ghoul's salvation came in 2296, when freed by a trio of bounty hunters hoping to secure his help in completing a lucrative job to capture Dr. Siggi Wilzig, a scientist who escaped the Enclave with a powerful item wanted by numerous factions, including the Brotherhood of Steel and New California Republic. Working for the Enclave, Wilzig was highly educated and knowledgeable about the allied organization Vault-Tec, with access to Pip-Boys and information about their fallout shelters. In addition to conducting experiments involving super mutants, this branch of the Enclave also experimented on dogs, allowing Wilzig to save CX-404 and raise her as a companion. Unhappy in his position, Wilzig got in contact with Moldaver and agreed to smuggle out valuable technology, storing a tiny device in the back of his own head for safekeeping. Yet before he could properly orchestrate his escape, he was caught by another scientist and suddenly forced to flee with his dog in the hopes of reaching Moldaver. Though the ghoul was intrigued by the bounty, he preferred to work alone, killing 2 of his liberators before tying the last to a coffin in the ground. Tracking the bounty to Philly, the ghoul found the scientist under the protection of a well-paid shop owner who turned the whole town against him. A highly skilled gunslinger with 2 centuries of experience, the ghoul slaughtered or incapacitated all his enemies, including the dogmeat companion of the scientist, until all that remained was a bright-eyed girl in a vault suit armed with a tranquilizer gun that did not affect him. Yet just as he was about to eliminate her, Maximus arrived in power armor to save Lucy and confront the ghoul. With the enemy distracted, Lucy agreed to escort the scientist to his destination upon learning he was traveling to meet Moldaver, the woman who invaded the vaults. However, the scientist lost his foot in the fight and knew he would only slow them down, and so took a cyanide pill, instructing Lucy to cut off his head as that held the valuable item needed by Moldaver. After he passed, Lucy did as she was told and continued the journey until attacked by a gulper who ate the head and retreated underwater. Back in Philly, Maximus had trouble using power armor without training, and so the ghoul won their confrontation, leaving his opponent in the dirt outside town. Healing the scientist's dog with a stim pack, the ghoul followed the loyal companion as he tracked down his master, first leading to the headless body, and after Lucy, who informed him the head was taken by a gulper. Despite luring the gulper back by using Lucy as bait, he was unable to secure the head, and found the last of his antiferal vials broken after the fight. Deciding to return later for the head, the ghoul took Lucy to a former super-duper mart, where she was sold to an organ dealer for 60 vials of the drug he needed. But when the Mr. Handy servant Snip Snip attempted the surgery, she escaped and freed the shop's captive ghouls, unaware some were feral, resulting in an attack where she emerged as the sole survivor. Leaving the store, she found her ghoul captor collapsed on the ground, starting to turn feral, yet rather than take vengeance, she left him some vials and went on her way. As all this went on, Maximus remained in Philly, where he was contacted by the Brotherhood and impersonated Knight Titus to report the death of his squire. However, this led the Brotherhood to send another, arriving just as Maximus finished defending, repairing, and re-entering his power armor. Learning Thaddeus, one of his old tormentors, was now his squire, Maximus embraced his superior position as they found the scientist's body and tracked down the head. But in the end, Maximus proved more courageous than the real Titus, taking on the gulper himself and saving his squire's life during the battle. Emerging victorious and finding the head, they celebrated that night, with the foe Titus even branding his squire with a T. This made Maximus comfortable enough to reveal his true identity, but was unable to adequately explain his actions, resulting in a fight where the squire's foot was crushed. But even so, Thaddeus emerged victorious, able to remove the power armor's fusion core, leaving his opponent trapped inside, unable to move. Securing the head, the squire sought a radio tower to contact the Brotherhood. Meanwhile, as Lucy, Maximus, and the ghoul competed for the head of the scientist, the people of Vault 33 recovered from the raider attack. Having helped Lucy escape, Chet lost his position as gatekeeper, and Norm was demoted to prison server, bringing meals to the surviving raiders in captivity. Making matters worse, Vault residents then learned the water chip was broken, leaving them less than 2 months of clean water. Enraged by all the deaths, Norm hated the raiders, but learned something interesting when he finally spoke to one, told there was something far from innocent happening in Vault 32. Clearing some of the rubble with his cousin Chet, they searched Vault 32 and learned they destroyed themselves roughly 2 years before the raiders arrived. Some of the residents ended their own lives, killed the overseer, or attempted to enter Vault 31, writing on the walls, "We know the truth," and "Death to management." In the end, they all died, and when Norm checked the overseer's computer, he learned the raiders opened the vault door from the outside with the Pip-Boy of his mother, Rose MacLean. Departing the super-duper mart, Lucy followed the tracker planted in the scientist's head and came across Maximus trapped in his power armor, rescuing him from rad roaches and freeing him from the suit. Yet she too was in danger and soon collapsed from radiation sickness, so he treated her with Radaway, and upon waking they formed an alliance to track the head together. Beginning their journey, Lucy and Maximus, posing as Knight Titus, met a pair from the Fiend's raider gang while crossing the same bridge and attempted to pass by peacefully, only for a gunfight to ensue, leaving the strangers dead and the squire wounded. For a while, Maximus insisted he was fine until passing a billboard that taught Lucy about Shady Sands, the thriving capital of the New California Republic, destroyed by nuclear blast in 2282. Shocked to see it had a population of over 34,000, Lucy realized the purpose of her vault, to restart civilization on Reclamation Day, was possibly unnecessary as civilization already returned on its own. Noticing Maximus getting worse, they stopped by Hawthorne Medical Lab, yet the Vault Tech-owned lab was connected to Vault 4, a fallout shelter run by scientists with no oversight or regulations, once featured in commercials starring Cooper Howard, and so both Lucy and Maximus fell through a trapdoor, landing in a room underground where their wounds were treated by friendly staff. Discovering a kind, diverse, and generous community, Maximus was initially skeptical, wanting to leave with the power armor recovered on his behalf, but soon embraced the luxuries of his Vault 4 home and was eager to stay. Lucy had the opposite journey, initially optimistic and praising of their policy to accept outsiders, even exploring a classroom where she learned about the New California Republic and first capital of Shady Sands. But her admiration turned to suspicion when she learned they were forbidden from visiting Level 12 and witnessed outsiders performing a cult ritual to worship the Flame Mother Moldaver, the woman who abducted Lucy's father. Investigating Level 12, Lucy discovered the remnants of horrifying human experiments where women were forced to birth schools of monstrous baby gulpers, horrifying fish-like creatures which viciously consumed their mothers. Throwing acid in the face of a scientist, Lucy assaulted several guards before they took her down, continuing her belligerence in captivity until shown a holotape that explained the situation. In reality, what Lucy saw were experiments conducted by the original leaders of Vault 4, scientists who tried to hybridize humans with radiation-resistant species. In time, the residents rebelled and released the Gulpers, which killed the scientists before escaping into the wasteland. Vault 4 was then turned into a peaceful settlement that accepted refugees and elected their leader. Too late, Lucy realized her error, and so was sentenced to death by banishment to the surface with 2 weeks' worth of supplies. Although Maximus was loving life in the vault, he saw Lucy dragged away and misunderstood the severity of her punishment, leading him to steal their fusion core, enter his power armor, assault guards, and spread chaos before Lucy revealed she was being released. Expelled from the vault, Lucy and Maximus apologized and returned their fusion core. Growing close, Lucy asked Maximus to join her in Vault 33 when their mission was over, but this made him feel guilty for his lies and so confessed his true identity, admitting he let Knight Titus die. But Lucy experienced so many horrors in her short time on the surface, she immediately forgave him and again asked him to join her. Finally getting the acceptance and home he always wanted, Maximus agreed and went on with a renewed determination, helping Lucy follow her tracker to a nearby radio tower. After defeating Maximus, Thaddeus left Dogmeat at a Red Rocket station and hobbled on a crushed foot to contact the Brotherhood and deliver the head. Along the way, he encountered an eccentric wasteland doctor and exchanged a fusion core for an inhalant drug that immediately repaired his foot. Directing his patient to a nearby radio tower, the doctor mentioned the squire no longer had to worry about radiation and departed. Upon reaching the tower, Thaddeus sent a message to the Brotherhood and waited patiently until spotting Maximus and Lucy. Unsuccessfully firing at them, Thaddeus accidentally triggered a trap and was shot through the neck by an arrow, yet somehow did not die, with Maximus claiming he might be a ghoul. As non-humans were enemies of the Brotherhood, Maximus offered to take the head so Thaddeus could escape, and then gave it to Lucy so she could rescue her father, while he remained with a decoy head to distract the soldiers fast approaching. Grateful, she kissed Maximus and asked him to find her in Vault 33 before departing. Presenting the fake head to the Brotherhood, Elder Cleric Quintus quickly realized it did not contain the relic, suspecting Maximus also lied about injuring Dane. Fortunately for the failed squire, his life was spared when Dane interrupted and confessed to sabotaging himself. Speaking in private, the Elder Cleric seemed intrigued by Maximus and revealed he planned to start and lead a new Brotherhood of Steel, offering to make Maximus an enforcer if he led them to the real relic. As the Brotherhood prepared to move out in force, Lucy reached the Griffith Observatory, where she found the remnants of an NCR faction led by Lee Moldaver. Receiving the head, Moldaver revealed the truth to Lucy, explaining that the relic inside was a cold fusion device she invented 2 centuries earlier before the Great War to provide limitless energy, thereby solving many of the problems leading the world to nuclear annihilation. Yet the technology was purchased and hidden by Vault-Tec, as their corporation relied on threats of war to sell fallout shelters, increase profits, and enact their long-term plans. Entirely committed to an ultra-capitalist society, the former United States government outsourced the survival of their population to Vault-Tec, a private corporation which concluded that since America was doomed to destruction, it would be illogical to try and save a failed nation. Therefore, they focused their efforts on ensuring the survival of Vault-Tec executives and staff, while selectively saving other citizens they believed would help them survive underground and breed new generations that might one day restart civilization in their own image. Seeking support for this massive undertaking, Vault-Tec set up a meeting where shadowy figures watched the executives Bud Askins and Barbara Howard offer a partnership to Big MT, Repcon, Westech, and Robco, some of the largest corporations in America, granting each of them ownership of several vaults to conduct unrestricted experiments seeking the best way to run a society. Among the suggestions made, they might overcrowd a vault so residents had to compete to survive, let an intelligent milk delivery robot oversee a vault, create super soldiers using illegal immigrants, release drugs into the air supply, and separate parents from children, letting only the smartest survive. Although most seemed interested in the idea, Robert House asked why they should make such a large investment into shelters that might never be used, as it all depended on an end-of-the-world scenario. However, Barbara Howard replied they could guarantee results by dropping the bombs themselves. In this way, those specific corporations could weaponize time and win the game of capitalism, eliminating every other human on Earth while holding a monopoly over the remaining population and future of humanity. Shocked by all she learned, Lucy's world truly collapsed when told of the management experiment conducted in her home of Vault 33, where Bud Askins integrated his Bud's Buds program, selecting a number of highly trained junior executives to be cryogenically frozen in Vault 31, periodically releasing them to lead Vaults 32 and 33, breeding with the population to produce new generations of super managers that would one day bring civilization back to the surface. To Lucy's horror, her father Hank MacLean was one of those junior executives, and when her mother Rose suspected the truth, she fled with her children to the surface, where they found Shady Sands, a thriving city protected by the New California Republic, founded to reflect old-world democratic values with laws, an economy, currency, healthcare, elected representatives, and equal rights for ghouls and mutants. Enraged she left with his children, Hank tracked her down, took them back, and used his Vault-Tec connections to drop a nuclear bomb on the city, justifying it beyond personal vengeance by seeking to eliminate a potential competitor on the surface. Lucy's final moment of heartbreak then came when Moldaver revealed the feral ghoul chained to the dinner table was her mother, Rose MacLean. Though her father tried to justify his actions, Lucy coldly asked him to give Moldaver the password needed to activate the cold fusion device. Reluctantly, Hank gave up the code, perhaps hoping to salvage the relationship with his daughter. Yet just as Moldaver began to realize her dream, the Brotherhood of Steel arrived in force, engaging in the Battle of the Griffith Observatory, wiping out NC forces and fatally wounding their leader. As all this went on, the ghoul recovered from nearly turning feral at the Super Duper Mart, and celebrated his recovery by enjoying a large stash of drugs while watching a movie from his past. Greatly changed from the man he was, Cooper Howard had an ideal life before the war, with a wife, child, successful career, and wealth. But everything started to go wrong when Barb convinced him to make ads and commercials for Vault-Tec, becoming the poster child for the end of the world. Tied to an organization that profited from the possibility of nuclear apocalypse, Cooper Howard began losing roles as other Hollywood actors refused to work with him. In conversation with one of his last remaining friends, Bartholomew Codsworth, who sold his voice to Mr. Handy, they discussed how success now depended on accepting an ultra-capitalist mentality, and those who foolishly stood against it would merely rob themselves of a chance to profit from the system. Yet even so, Cooper Howard struggled to accept the morality of the situation, growing upset when his wife revealed dogs were not allowed in the vaults. Questioning what other freedoms might be taken, Coop grew curious and met with his old war buddy Charlie Whitehorse, a fellow actor rumored to be a communist, who said Vault-Tec were evil because of their financial interest in disrupting peace talks and encouraging threats of nuclear war. Inviting Cooper to a meeting of citizens against Vault-Tec, he met their leader Miss Williams, later known as Moldaver, a scientist who explained she invented a cold fusion device for limitless power, which Vault-Tec bought and kept from the world, giving him a listening device to spy on his wife and learn the truth. Initially hesitant, he planted the device and waited in her office, where he listened to her meeting with other corporations, hearing her suggest they drop the bomb themselves. Stunned into silence, Cooper was then introduced to young Henry MacLean, his wife's executive assistant and a big fan who asked for an autograph. Waking up in the Super Duper Mart, the Ghoul was surrounded and arrested by police on behalf of the local government. As it turned out, the president of this small faction was an old acquaintance, but when the Ghoul brazenly confessed to destroying the organ dealer business and shooting up the town of Philly, he was sentenced to death. Quickly killing the guards and freeing himself, the Ghoul pulled down a wanted poster of Lee Moldaver, recognizing her as Miss Williams from before the war. Wanting to track her down, the Ghoul attempted to intercept NCR correspondence to learn her location, but after shooting one of Moldaver's followers, Rufus, the letter was partially destroyed. From the information he could read, he searched for the follower's younger brother Tommy, who also planned to join this NCR remnant, extracting Moldaver's location at the Griffith Observatory. Knowing Tommy might one day seek vengeance for his brother, the Ghoul baited him to reach for a gun and killed the boy in front of his father. Continuing forward, the Ghoul found and freed Dogmeat from the Red Rocket Station before arriving at NCR headquarters in the midst of a battle with the Brotherhood. Stealthily infiltrating the main building, the Ghoul confronted a room full of knights in power armor as well as squires that included Maximus, using his knowledge of a little-known weakness in their steel suits to destroy them all. Escaping the massacre, Maximus found Lucy in shock and, unaware of all that transpired, eagerly freed her father from captivity. Emerging from a daze, Lucy tearfully explained that her father bombed Shady Sands, leading Maximus to attack Hank MacLean. But it was too late, as Hank put on a suit of power armor while they spoke, and easily knocked the squire unconscious before asking Lucy to leave with him. Arriving as Lucy held a gun to her father, the Ghoul shot Hank in the cheek, and after searching for 200 years, demanded to know the location of his family. Saying nothing, Hank used the suit's jetpack to leap away, which the Ghoul allowed, planning to follow the trail and track down his superiors. Growing to respect Lucy, the Ghoul invited her to join him and Dogmeat on their adventures, but before leaving with him, she ended her mother's suffering and promised to one day return for the unconscious Maximus. Journeying east, they followed Hank MacLean to the Mojave Desert and city of New Vegas. Sometime later, Maximus awoke to find Moldaver activating the cold fusion reactor to finally complete her life's work by bringing limitless power to the city and wasteland. Fatally wounded and about to pass away, she asked Maximus what the Brotherhood would do with limitless power and suggested he try and stop them. Found by Dane and the rest of their men, they assumed he killed the enemy leader, and so hailed Knight Maximus as a hero of the Brotherhood. Meanwhile, back in Vault 33, Norm wanted to know what happened in Vault 32, and did some research to learn every overseer for 32 and 33 came from 31, including Hank MacLean and Betty Pearson, who won the election to replace his father. Norm and Chet truly started to understand the danger when the prisoners were poisoned to death, and Vault 32 cleaned and made ready for new residents without any mention or concern about what they found. Frightened into silence, Chet did nothing and accepted a fresh start and relationship with Steph Harper, while Norm was undeterred, sneaking away during the transfer ceremony, where Chet and others moved from Vault 33 to 32. Entering the Overseer's office, he hacked the computer and sent a message to the Overseer of 31, impersonating Betty to claim the mission was at risk. Instructed to enter Vault 31, Norm found the robo-brain of Bud Askins, who oversaw the experiment and cryogenically frozen executives, periodically waking them for integration into the shelters. Explaining the Buds program and their goal of breeding super managers, the robo-brain informed Norm he was locked inside the room and could not leave, suggesting he wait in his father's pod so he could be frozen, possibly for years, until a time when they would all be released and return to the surface. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Sir Dayron of House Ashford, Fred Heartless, Knight of Iron and Ice, Ishmam Ahmed of Shamidiana, and Barachado. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.